How you doing, everybody? My name is Matt Dinerman, the track announcer here at Oaklawn Park. It's Out of the Starting Gate, Episode 1, our pilot of Out of the Starting Gate with Matt Dinerman, sponsored by Oaklawn Park here in the Oaklawn Today studios, and I'm joined today by my guest. You'll see guests along the way, different ones, but we're going to have him on plenty. This is jockey agent Cody Caudill here at Oaklawn Park, has been a jockey agent for numerous years here at Oaklawn, and Cody, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yep, glad to be here. I represent Rafael Bejarano and Keith Asmussen of the meet. Got 2 live shots in the Southwest, so we're looking forward to that and looking forward to talking about it.
You could have a big day, and I'm sure that's a lot of fun for somebody like you. Not only do you come here, you play the races, you handicap the races, but you actually have action. If Keith wins a race, I'm sure there's nothing like it.
No, nothing like it. So looking forward to talking about it all and also previewing what happened last week as well.
We will have plenty to discuss, and on this week on Out of the Starting Gate, you're going to take a look at this graphic now. We've got a number of topics to discuss on our pilot episode here. What you might have missed from last week, we're going to talk about some impressive performances from last week. Up-and-comers, horses that we saw from last week that are maybe climbing the ranks to possibly be stakes types of horses. And we'll have a hidden gem of the week for you, a horse that maybe didn't win, but might have caught our attention enough to where maybe not everybody caught this horse's good effort, but we're going to be able to talk about a horse that we think has some major upside and you want to pay attention to. We'll go over every horse in the Southwest Stakes, of course, our big stake, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, and of course, Cody is well represented in the Southwest as well with an entrant there in Speed King for the Team Bejarano camp, and also Keith Asmussen. He's got Tiz-tastic. We'll talk about them. Martha Washington, that's a prep for the Kentucky Oaks. We've got a half dozen in there. We'll talk about each filly there. It's going to be a good race. And then finally, Denny's Clocker Pick of the Day. I've come up with a Clocker special for you. I watch all the workouts on oaklawn.com/racing/workouts, and I've got a pick this week based on his workout alone that I think you're going to want to pay attention to. That's this week's episode on Out of the Starting Gate. Well, we'll get right to it, Cody. What you might have missed from last week. We'll start with our 2 stakes races from last week. In the Renaissance Stakes, Kale's Angel becomes the first on Saturday, 2-time stake winner at the meeting. Kale's Angel, very impressive in the Advent, Cody. This time around, he had to work a little bit harder.
Yeah, not as impressive, but he did it on a short, return. I think it was 10 days, and he gutted it out and got it done. It wasn't very pretty, but he ended up getting the job done.
You think that maybe the quick turnaround, he had run 2 weeks prior in the Smarty Jones. He had run a few weeks earlier before then in the Advent and earned a big speed figure that day, ran huge. Do you think that could have been the reason he showed his B-, maybe even C+ race?
I think so. That and a combination of him having to run a mile on the 16th the time before, that takes speed out of horses, and it's a totally different ball game. So he was cutting back, short return, come out of a route race. I thought overall, he ran a decent race. I wouldn't hold it against him much. And going forward, he's definitely a major player in the sprint stakes.
And you think that sprinting is what he's going to want to do?
Yeah, definitely. His route race, they kind of got to crawl up front. He didn't necessarily go on with it, and he kind of got tired towards the end. So I think they'd focus on sprint races from now on.
Well, we know one runner that likes to route, and that's Corningstone. And we saw her win the Pippin Stakes, and she became the second 2-time stakes winner at the current Oaklawn meeting. Corningstone for Kenny McPeak and Julian Leparoux. There wasn't much pace in this one, Cody, and as you see on the replay here, she went to the lead and just kept going this time.
Yeah, smart move by Julian Leparoux to put her out there on the front end in a paceless race, and she turned him away, and she's a heck of an Indiana bred for sure.
How does she stack up in the older division here? Because we know Torpedo Anna's on her way to Oaklawn. That's going to be a tough task, but if you take out Torpedo Anna, how do you think she stacks up here?
As far as the local contingent goes, I think she's solid, but against Torpedo Anna and the likes of those, I doubt she has much of a chance. But she's definitely a very useful, solid, filly that shows up basically every time. So
she's pretty consistent, and the speed figures indicate that as well. And speaking of speed figures, we're going to get to our next segment here, the up-and-comers that we have come together to show you. We think there are a few runners we saw last week here at Oaklawn that could be stakes types of runners down the line, and we're going to start, Cody, with Miss Hebrides. Speaking of Julian Leparoux and Kenny McPeak, they team up with Miss Hebrides, and she was very impressive. I think from the eye test, calling the race, watching it on track, Cody, she really came came home and finished the race as strong as she was in the beginning of the
Absolutely.
race.
That was a step forward for her. She got to the lead and drew away and won by 7.5 lengths. She's a really nice filly. Going forward, she's one to keep an eye on. She could theoretically run against the Corningstone maybe down the line, and she seems like she's got enough potential to maybe compete with those types.
If you were Kenny McPeak, would you run her in a second level allowance, or would you try to get her some black type? Because fillies and mares are a little bit different. It can be very valuable to have that black type versus maybe colts and geldings where you want to go through conditions at times.
Kenny McPeak has a pretty loaded deck with just older mares in general, so I imagine he'll probably run her through her conditions maybe one more time and then maybe look for stakes after that.
Possibly a good move there to just keep that confidence building for Miss Hebrides. And one that I don't think we're going to see going through conditions is Caldera. Of course, Rafael Bejarano aboard, Mr. Caudill getting him the mount and helping him get that victory there. Caldera for My Racehorse gets an 82 buyer. This gray horse here, a little bit green down the lane, Cody, but I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, he's always been a very talented horse, and his first couple races, he didn't necessarily put it all together. I think putting the blinkers on last weekend, he got to the lead, and he beat a group of older horses, which as a 3-year-old, you don't see that happen this time of year that much, and he did it very impressively. He swapped leads at the end, but I think he was doing it so easy, it was kind of more of him just playing around than anything. I think there's more ability there and a lot more upside.
Where do you think you could possibly see him next? Because you know Dwayne Lucas, he likes to take shots, especially with these Derby types of horses. I don't know if he's a Derby type of horse, but you might see him in a Derby prep down the road.
I think he's got a lot of potential going forward, and Wayne has several 3-year-olds at this juncture. Last weekend, he runs third in the, the Lecomte. So
with Innovator.
Yep. He has a bunch of horses to spread around. I'm pretty sure that horse will likely show up in either the next prep here or maybe ship out of town for one elsewhere.
Probably the Rebel is the next prep here. Of course, not going to wheel back in a week. But Caldera, also know, Cody, I've heard that he's been one of the more well-hyped type of horses in the barn from early on.
Yes, they've always liked him from early on. His first time out going 6 furlongs, he didn't get out of the gate very well and didn't get a very clean trip. Second time, I think he ran an okay race, but you could tell there was still some more ability there that he had not gave. And I think he put it all together last time out here last weekend, and I think there's more to give going forward.
Caldera, a son of Liam's Map, purchased for $500,000 by My Racehorse. So they're slowly getting that money back, and they get the maiden win with him. So Caldera, one you want to watch out for. And I've got another 3-year-old that I thought was very impressive. First Division, who was a restricted maiden special weight winner last week for Team McPeak and Julian Leparoux. The one thing I really liked about this horse is the way he finished, and knowing his pedigree, he is a half to none other than Corningstone and also Ice Cold, who won a stake here last year. This horse has the pedigree to want more ground. And Kenny McPeak is not a trainer that typically cranks his horses up like maybe a Brad Cox or a Bob Baffert. He's happy to have him win first out, but he wants him to have a good experience, and he builds up horses in terms of stamina. I thought this horse was very impressive going one turn, and I don't even think this horse is necessarily a one-turn horse.
No, definitely not. I think 2 turns will be better, and the fact she won first time out, I think that says a lot about her. So going forward, she's definitely one to look out for.
So McPeak's got a loaded deck here, not only with colts, he's also got fillies, he's got older horses, he's got younger horses. It's good to be Kenny McPeak these days. Miss Hebrides and First Division, 2 of the 3 up-and-comers, and then, of course, Caldera for the Dwayne Lucas barn, the coach. But we've got one more to chat with you about. This is a hidden gem. So every week we're going to give you a hidden gem, a horse that we believe didn't win, but has potential, maybe a younger horse, maybe a horse going in the right direction. And we found a bit of a sleeper, I think, here, Cody, in 67 Mustang from the Doug Anderson barn, a son of Vacoma, and we're going to take a look at that full race replay right here. The gate break was not fantastic, and you can't even see him on the screen down the backstretch.
Yeah, this horse was in a totally different area code and just got going way too late. And when he got going, he made up a ton of ground, ended up getting a beat length all said and done.
And how's his gallop out? Because I think that when you look at past the wire, especially these younger horses, they give you an indication on the gallop out whether they have a lot of energy, whether they want more ground. What did you make of that?
I think sprinting is just fine for that horse. I don't necessarily think they anticipated him being that far back or making that big of a run. So I would just say another time going short, I'm sure he'd be very tough. And that's just one that, I mean, he was so far back, you didn't even know he was in the race until, middle of the stretch.
And I was calling the race, and I sort of had to take a second look because all of a sudden I'm saying his name. I say, wait a second, that horse was 30 lengths behind. The Vacomas, Cody, they're precocious. They seem like one-turn types at the moment. We haven't seen too much of a big sample size to how they do as two-turn horses. But these Vacomas, they're firing.
Yeah, they're runners, and I'm sure Doug Anderson's happy to own that one because I'm sure the phone's ringing off the hook after we're not the only ones that saw that, I'm sure.
Surely. And this horse, I mean, he must have gone 22 flat the last quarter mile. I mean, he
Yes.
was absolutely nowhere. And if you take a look at the wire, it's like a flash of light. This horse just comes flying by horses.
And props to the jock for keep pedaling on him because sometimes, jockeys aren't always as enthusiastic among first-time starters being that far back, and I think the jock played a big role in him finishing the way he did.
Well, he finished with a big run, and we're going to start with big racing this week, Thursday through Sunday racing here at Oaklawn Park. And then next week we have added a Thursday card, so it's going to be a good 8 days of racing these next 2 weeks here at Oaklawn Park with 4 racing days. But the big one, of course, early first post on Saturday, Southwest Day, $1 million the purse. The first time the Southwest has been $1 million, 20 Kentucky Derby points to the winner of the race, and we're going to give out 22 other points for horses that finish second through fourth. So those guys are also going to get some points there. And as you can see here, our Mystic Dan bobblehead, that's right, we're going to have a giveaway here at Oaklawn. Our Mystic Dan bobblehead, of course, he won the Southwest last year. You can see him up on the screen here, won in the slop. But good news, Cody, 11:25 a.m. first post. That's early first post. I know that gets you fired up.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things in the world is an early post time.
There you go, and we're going to have it for you, and also a fast track as well.
Yes.
The weather is saying Mother Nature is going to cooperate with us. The gates open at 10:30 a.m., so make sure you get here 55 minutes before the first race. We're going to be opening our gates to what's expected to be a large crowd. We had some rough weather last year on Southwest Day, and we got 32,000 people. So with a bobblehead giveaway, with good weather, we're expecting a large crowd. And guess what? You're going to have a treat because Cody and I are going to go over every single horse in the Southwest Stakes. 10 of them in the gate, and we start off with Gaming from the Bob Baffert barn. Bob has won this race 6 times, Cody. And Gaming, coming from California with Juan Hernandez, who's flying in to ride. This horse ran pretty darn well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, running second. But then he ran a pretty subpar race in the Los Alfuturity. Ran third against not a great group. What did you make of that?
I was very disappointed. He had the rail draw last time. He's got the rail draw this time, so maybe that's a hindrance. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he ran a good race, but he had a very clean outside trip the entire way, and he was involved and just kind of chased Citizen Bull around there. So last time, it looks like they tried to raid off an obvious speed horse, and he didn't really handle it that great, I didn't think, and he didn't really kick on either. This horse will be one of the favorites, but I think overall I'll play against this year.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that this horse off that last race, hard to take a horse that could potentially be favored after such a poor run. And realistically, the only races he's won have been going one turn. Do you think that maybe this horse might have distance limitations?
I don't know about distance limitations, but I think consistency is probably his thing he's battling right now. Because his last race, he was very low odds, projected to win. And he didn't even run second. He ran third and had a fairly clean trip, I thought. But maybe it's just the inside, but he's got to tackle that today as well. So,
where does he rank amongst the Bob Baffert horses? You've got Barnes, for example, that's sort of waiting in the wings. You've got, I believe, Rodriguez, who was an extremely impressive maiden winner. Where does he rank amongst these? Of course, Citizen Bull, he won the Breeders' Cup. He beat Gaming. Getaway Car is in the mix. So Bob's got about a half dozen of them.
And I think you got to be careful with the Bobs because sometimes the ones that are the best are the ones that haven't ran yet or maybe only run one time. And he's run 4, so maybe he's kind of, falling into line with what Bob has. And he feels like this is a good shot, I guess, for $1 million. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, the thing is, Bob is very precocious when it comes to getting those horses to win right off the bat. Or I should say his horses are precocious. So usually they don't need racing experience in terms of just seeing their raw ability. They either have it or they don't, and he's had 4 chances to show it. We go to number 2. His name is Publisher. He's one of 2 maidens in the race for trainer Steve Asmussen. This is a peculiar entry here because we have a maiden special weight on the card, race 2. Steve could have put him in there, but he opts to give this high-priced yearling purchase a shot against Stakes Company.
Yeah, so we have 2 maidens in this race this year, Publisher and Bond Temps. Publisher comes out of American Promise's last race, where they both were separated by 19.5 lengths to third.
Yeesh.
So that race got a big buyer speed figure, a 92 for Publisher and a 95 for American Promise. But on other sheet numbers, such as the Ragozin, the number come back a little bit slow and similar to what they've both been running previously. So you don't see that very often, and I tend to agree with the sheets on that they probably didn't run as crazy of a race as the buyer speed figure made it look.
Pretty big discrepancy, I would say.
Yeah, you don't see it often.
I would think that has some sway as to what these odds will be, depending on what types of speed figures the horse players look at. Eric Asmussen's riding this horse, by the way, and Cody, of course, he's up for the Eclipse Award in South Florida. We're going to hear on Friday night whether Eric takes home a trophy. What do you think?
I think he's got a very good shot. He's won a bunch of races, and he's a good kid and good rider.
Eric Asmussen, Publisher, maybe on Saturday when he's in the post parade, we'll make sure to note that he's an Eclipse Award winner. Monet's Magic is number 3 from the Ben Colebrook barn. This horse is green as grass. I even noted it in the call when he ran last time. And on Denny's workout report, his last workout this weekend, he was trying to lug in just like he did in his race here in the afternoon a few weeks back. So, Cody, he's going to have to straighten up.
Yeah, he's got to straighten up. He's going to have to improve. But I think Ben's trying to get it while the getting's good right now, and that's why he won an allowance race. He's stepping up in class big time. This is way tougher horses than he's ever run against. I do think he's the type of horse, though, to lag back and just come and pick up some pieces. So there's not really a whole lot of pressure on him to be involved early.
$1 million, I mean, even if you run third and you're green, you're going to make $100,000.
Yep,
there.
more Derby points as well.
Exactly. So Monet's Magic, one that probably needs to step it up off his last race, but certainly one that has some ability. And if he can straighten up, I think there's room to grow there. Tistastic is number 4. He's a little more professional. The other Asmussen entrant in the race, of course, Keith is signed on, one of your jockeys. So what can you tell us about Tistastic?
He's making his 3-year-old debut here. I think there's still a lot of upside there. I generally respect what he's run against between First Resort, Jonathan's Way, and actually Sandman. I like him as well. So I like some of the other horses that have run this year, but I think there's still a lot of upside with him, and he could run a very good race still.
I like that Steve freshens this horse. We haven't seen him since November. I think that was by design.
I think so too. I mean, I'm not sure the Southwest was necessarily the end-all be-all here, but
Sure.
I think this horse runs a good race here, and going forward, he's definitely one to look out for.
And he's won a couple times on turf, so there is upside to whether maybe even down the road, if he doesn't particularly take to being a great dirt horse, then maybe the turf is an option.
Yep.
Render Judgment, he's number 5. He's scratching. Kenny McPeak on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He actually tweeted out that this horse is a minor issue, so he will be scratching out of the Southwest. So Render Judgment, we'll see him another day. Sandman, we're going to take a look at the stretch run here on Sandman. The gray son of Tappet purchased for $1.2 million. Expectations were always there, but this was the first race. Sometimes these Tappets, they're a little bit goofy and a little bit slow developers. This horse, first time that we saw him put it all together in this allowance last time.
I agree. He had an inside trip going a mile here, which is tough to do. He had horses back up in his face, and he had to wait to make his run. And even when he started making his run, it didn't look like he was necessarily going to get there, but he still did. And overall, I think he's probably the horse to beat in my eyes. I think he's consistently going to get a good trip probably in here. He's coming from off the pace. He's not going to have to deal with pace pressure. And I think he's figuring it out. So
very much on the improve, and a horse that probably can run all day as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot to like about Sandman with our leading rider, Christian Torres, who also rode Monet's Magic last time and opts to ride Sandman. So read to that as you will.
Yep.
The big hype horse here, Patch Adams, up next. He draws post 7 for Brad Cox, who, by the way, is still winless at the meeting.
Yeah, Patch Adams is the hype horse in here, I'd say. He's shown a ton of ability in his last race, going 7/8 in a quick time and a big figure. So he's trying 2 turns today. I've seen horses like this. I remember one last year named Nash that won easily at Churchill going 2 turns, and he kind of had me convinced that he might be a Derby player. But sometimes these horses that win with these big numbers and by 10 lengths, they don't necessarily always, the next time they run, they don't necessarily replicate that. So I think this horse might be a potential play against for how low odds he's going to be, and I tend to play against these types.
He's a horse that obviously has talent. If you go to xbtv.com, you'll see him work with Hit Show a couple weeks back, and he pretty much just toyed with him in the workout.
Yes, he did.
But The thing is, he's going a mile and a 16th here, and he went the one turn last time out. Into Mischiefs, they can obviously go 2 turns, but as you mentioned, Nash, a horse that was very impressive, and I think, he got a 97 Beyer when he won
I think he
Churchill.
ran a 97 at Churchill in November last year, going a mile 16th and won by 10 lengths. And that was a horse that I was personally interested in for the Derby. And the next time he ran, I believe it was in the Lecomte. He was 3-5, and I think he ran second or third. So I've seen it before. That's all I was going to note. And this horse could definitely be potentially a Derby horse, but I'm going to play against him his first time going 2 turns.
Patch Adams, he's going to get bet. Is he going to get bet hard enough to where he goes off favorite over Gaming?
I think so. We'll see.
I agree. I think he will be favored. I think Gaming will be second choice, and I think Sandman will be third choice. But I think Gaming, I'm with you on this. Gaming probably at 2-1, not a great bet. Patch Adams, I guess the verdict is still out as to how good he is and what kind of horse he is. We all know the talent's there to be a very nice horse, but we'll see on Saturday. Going to answer some questions for all of us. We've still got more horses to talk about in the Southwest. We go to number 8, American Promise for the D. Wayne Lucas barn. As you mentioned, those discrepancy in the speed figures probably has a couple people scratching their heads if they're looking at both speed figures, Buyers, and the Ragozin sheets. But as you take a look at this replay here, this horse and Publisher ran second. You get to see both of them well clear of the third place horse.
Yeah, so Publisher I thought had a fairly clean trip and every opportunity to go by him, whereas American Promise, the thing about American Promise is he likes to go to the lead, but he's kind of not on the fast side. So generally the slower the pace, the better for him. He's not a very sprinty type horse. I think he's more of a 1 1/8 type. So if he's ever able to get an easier lead going further, I think he's dangerous. And here, I think he's up against it from a pace standpoint. And then you also have Tyler Bacon making his graded stakes debut as well.
If you could give a grade for his last race, A+ being, holy smokes, that was unbelievable, blew my mind, to F, horrible race. How good was his race last time?
I think it was similar to what he'd been running before. As you could see, 2 and 3 back, he lost to Render Judgment and Monet's Magic. Something to note about his last race is when he came across the gate tracks, his ears and head went up as if he was kind of a little bit, didn't know what to make of it.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot more there, and it kind of gave Publisher an opportunity to try to make another run out of him, and he still held him off. So I think there's a lot of horse there. It's just a matter of, I doubt the pace scenario in here is going to set up well for him.
So you're saying the Buyer indicates he ran an A type of race. You maybe say he ran a B type of race.
Yeah, I think I think he's improving, yes. I doubt it was that big of an improvement.
Well, Bon Temps will need to improve if he wants to win this race. He didn't get the greatest trip last time out. A bit of a head scratcher when you saw this horse in the Smarty Jones last time out because he'd never really been that competitive as a maiden. Then you go against proven winners, and he almost probably lost, a quarter of a length for second? Not bad.
This was one of the craziest entries of the meet last time. And Wayne likes this horse a lot, and he had talked about that he thought this horse was going to run good. In his last race, it crawled up front, and he had an opportunity to get to the lead early in the race, and for whatever reason, they decided to sit back. And I think that probably hindered him, and overall, he didn't run a bad race. So I honestly think he has a slightly better chance than Publisher.
So you take Bon Temps over Publisher.
I would, if I'm going to pick between the maidens, I would take Bon Temps to finish in front of Publisher.
And who do you think will go off at higher odds?
Definitely Bon Temps.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a $600,000 American Pharaoh out of a graded stakes type mare compared to a Bravazzo homebred for Calumet, who Wayne Lucas also trained. So
right. Wayne is not scared to take shots, we have noted, and Bon Temps is in this, and Calumet Farm also ones that aren't scared to take shots.
No, not at all. And this horse picked up some points last time, so Wayne's coming back again to get some more. And
we've got one more horse to talk about who did gain a couple of points in the Springboard Mile. That's Speed King. I know you work with Ron Moquette a little bit, Cody, and also, of course, Raphael's aboard. So what can you tell us about Speed King?
Speed King has always been very precocious, and he's a huge horse, but he has a ton of speed. And he's by volatile, which is kind of, you think iffy going further. But so far, he's shown that he's a very good horse. And I wouldn't really, I think he's a stakes type of horse, absolutely. The mile and a 16th is a little bit iffy, but I do think his outside post and him being able to sit off the pace should help. In the Springboard Mile last time, he basically turned away wave after wave of horse and then got nailed at the wire by a horse that came back to win the Smarty Jones.
That being Cole Battle. So how good was that race from Speed King last time in your mind?
At the time after he ran, I was kind of questioning the distance, but after rewatching it and thinking about it, I think he generally just took a ton of pace pressure, and in the end, that's what did him in. So I think this time he should have an easier trip. Obviously, it's a lot better horses, but he should be able to set off of the speed and be able to try to make a run from there.
I know you saw him work out a half mile, 47. Ron not one to work him super quick all the time. He got the bull at work that morning from a large size of horses working the half mile. I think there were over 300 of them. Yep. How did he look?
He looked great. Raphael loved the way he worked. He always works tremendous, so just a matter of handling the mile 16th, I think. I think the quality is there.
10 post position drawn outside. Those are all the horses in the Southwest. That'll be race number 10 on the Saturday card. And we go along, actually go backwards to the race right before at the Martha Washington. Just like the Southwest, we're giving out points, but they're Kentucky Oaks points for the 3-year-old fillies.
Yep. And here we have Quiet Side as a big favorite. Obviously, she's run second and third and 2 grade 1s and a grade 2 last time. The last 2 have been going 2 turns, so she's obviously the one to beat here.
And she draws the rail. We'll start with her, a field of 6 in this race. Quiet Side for Shortleaf Stable. Of course, they are here. This home state for them, Shortleaf Stable in Arkansas, and they really gear up for these races here at Oaklawn and these big races. And we've seen some nice runners from them, not only recently, but for years and years, well before we were in the game. And Quiet Side, obviously pointing for this race here. She's done well against good company. Immersive, she's finished behind. Of course, Immersive went on to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We saw her finish behind Good Cheer most recently. He was a very nice Brad Cox trainee. So Quiet Side, you can make an argument this is a theoretical class drop with who she runs against.
Not just theoretical, it's a definite class drop. I mean, she's run against some of the best fillies in the division to this point, and she's looking to get her year started off in the right direction.
Is she the one to beat?
Oh, without a doubt.
And is she one that you will try to beat?
Not necessarily. I think she should probably be pretty tough in here based on what she's running against. But there are some interesting options to maybe think about.
One of them is Her Laugh, who's a stakes winner. Believe it or not, Quiet Side has yet to boast the fact that she is a stakes winner. Mm-hmm. Her Laugh won a stake at the fairgrounds last time out for Whit Beckman, and here she is shipping in for trainer Whit Beckman and Axel Concepcion, who has the ride. We saw Axel here a few times last year. I watched that race, Cody, and I sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of went because she got everything her own way on the lead. Mm-hmm. And then the fact of the matter is, when you look at who she finished ahead of, they have come back, Golden Gamble and California Sunset. Both runners have come back to lose their next starts.
Yeah, I mean, Golden Gamble did not have a clean trip that day, and I made an excuse for her going forward. But I think she followed that up, and she did not win at the fairgrounds the other day from what I remember. And California Sunset, I believe, lost a 1 other than allowance on Sunday over there.
Right.
So I think you're thinking along the right lines. I mean, she got to crawl on the front end. This will definitely be a tougher spot for her today.
What's your overall thought on her ability?
I think jury's still out. I mean, she's definitely deserves to be in this race, but I doubt she's a Quiet Side type of horse.
And I think she will be an underlay in this race. Mm-hmm. She's 2-1 on the morning line. I think she's a bet against.
Yeah, I think there's more interesting players in here other than her.
Well, one thing we look at as horse players finding value is trips. And Adira, we want to mention her from the Steve Asmussen barn. She had a rough trip last time out. I mean, she got down on the inside, tried to get through inside, couldn't get through in there. You get a jockey change from Eric to older brother Keith. I don't know if she has the quality to beat the best runners in here if they show up with their best like Quiet Side, but I'll say this. I'm going to take the stand that she could have won that day if she got a good trip.
Yeah, it was not the cleanest of trips. It was a lot of indecision early, it seemed like. But she's also run against Good Cheer and some really nice fillies as well. So she needs to step up, I'd say, with her performances, but she's at least ran against some of the best in here, just like Quiet Side.
Adira is a daughter of Authentic, an innovator who ran third in the LeCompte, also a son of Authentic. How's he doing?
It seems like the Authentics are starting to liven up a little bit more with the more distance they run. So
yeah. And that he was precocious, he could sprint, but his very best races when he went through the ranks and eventually was routing and then put it all together in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So the Authentics you want to look out for, they're starting to figure things out as opposed to maybe the McKinseys or the Vacomas that are a little more precocious and sprinty. You can't talk about fillies and mares these days without Kenny McPeek being in the conversation, and he is sending a pair in here. We're going to start with the one who's lower on the morning line odds. That's Take Charge My Lady, and you're going to take a look at this stretch run coming up here. It was her best race yet. She has improved with every start. What I loved about this, Cody, is you can see here, her ears are pricked up. She finished full of run, and she won for fun, and there was more in the tank. So she's ready, I think, to take the next bump up the stakes company.
I agree. She's improved with both her races this year. Now she's third off the layoff, so there could be more in store.
Are you thinking that she's best on the mud, or do you think that she could just be getting good and the fast track will be no problem?
I don't think the track matters. I think this horse is just improving with every race.
And she finished behind a next out winner 2 starts ago on a fast track. So I don't see why this gal can't run another effective race today. But I sort of like the other McPeek entrant, my top pick in the race, Gal's Delight. I don't think she's going off at what her morning line odds are. But the fact of the matter is you got to be pretty talented to win first out going 2 turns. And especially for Kenny McPeek, who doesn't really crank them up first time out, as we mentioned. He'll have them ready to win, but they don't always. They can improve with time. And she won for fun that day.
She did. I think Kenny has 2 solid entrants in here, and both have a chance. Obviously, Quiet Side has a little bit of a class edge and performance edge, but these horses are improving that he's bringing to the race.
And we've got one more to talk about, Legal Empress, who, of course, broke her mane. She's going to have to step it up. I will give her this. She ran hard. She fought hard to the wire. Didn't spit the bit when she was challenged last time. But this is a legit bump up. And even though Take Charge My Lady and Legal Empress both have broken their mains at the same level, the main special weight conditions, I think Take Charge My Lady was a lot more impressive, and Legal Empress won, who's a price, and I think will need to improve.
Yeah, she needs to improve, but she's the obvious speed in here. Shirley Hernandez gets her out there and just try to take them as far as she can go.
Harry's a pretty aggressive rider, so I would imagine that would be the case, and could cause some problems for Her Laugh, who we're expecting to at least try to get out there.
Yes, generally I think Her Laugh's the play against in here.
We've got 2 stakes we just covered, the Southwest and the Martha Washington, but don't worry, there's more stakes action. We're not going to get too deep into it, but we've got 4 additional stakes races on the Southwest day. We've got the General MacArthur. That is an overnight stake. We've had a number of stakes added to the schedule this year for horses that have not won sweepstakes. So we're going to see the General MacArthur. We have the Bugler Stakes, which drew a full field of 14 fillies and mares. The 5th season for routers. That's on the road to the Oaklawn Handicap. And then, of course, the King Cotton Stakes, the road to the Count Fleet. We've got some very talented sprinters, including one of our personal favorites, Tano Twist.
Yes, I love a big giant closer, and he always comes with a big run.
And he was a little bit unlucky last time out to running second to a horse that really freaked in Banishing, and we're actually going to see him on Thursday in one of those overnight race stakes, 4 horses that have yet to win a stakes sweepstakes. So it's going to be a good day, though, Saturday, and you're going to be getting here bright and early.
Yep, I'll be ready to go.
We've got one more segment for you before we wrap things up here. It's my clocker pick of the day. That's right. Maybe I should say the week, as we're going to do this once a week. But Denny's clocker pick of the day, as we call it. I've got a horse for you on the card, race 4 at Saturday, that I really love, and his name is Mac Man, and we're going to take a look at his workout here. I've rated all the workouts since January 1st. I've downloaded the works. I have chronologically put horses in order, given letter grades, given comments on my computer, and what I can say about MacMan is he is one of the best looking horses in the morning consistently as of late. This horse, as you can see here, just breezing down the lane effortlessly. I spoke to Christian Torres about this horse, and he says, you know, this horse always works like $1 million, but in the races, sometimes he gets that pack animal mentality. So, Cody, I'm hoping that's not the case, because I'm going to try to beat him over Bishop's Bay, a second level allowance race. And of course, Bishop's Bay, he's one that did very well against Graded Stakes Company as a 3-year-old, took a bunch of time off, has come back, and last time out lost as a heavy favorite at this condition that he's going to try to win at next time.
Yeah, I think the workout being recorded here is a great resource, and MacMan's definitely look great in the mornings.
Oaklawn.com/racing/workouts. Again, Oaklawn.com/racing/workouts. You can find works every single day here on Oaklawn.com. So that's going to do it on our first episode of Out of the Starting Gate, sponsored by Oaklawn. Southwest Day on Saturday. You don't want to miss it. Early first post is 11:25 a.m. Cody, it was fun. Good analysis. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Out of the Starting Gate, we're ready to go, and we're ready to race 4 racing days on Southwest Week here at Oaklawn.